Ask him what his focus is on assaulting Christianity.
We're not doing that today.
Trying to save black people.
Look, we're not doing that today.
Harriet Tubman said I think in the new one.
New.
Yeah, Lucifer Hunter.
There's
Lord.
There's a couple new ones in there. There's a couple new titles.
But Mike's been working though.
Also, Beautiful Mind.
Is that it too? Is that
it's probably like 4 or 5 more though.
Okay. But Mike's been working.
Man, I'm on the ground.
Mike's been hitting the ground hard.
I'm trying to give us free, man. Like Sinke.
Listen. Talk about what you've been doing.
So, I've been, man, paying attention to what's going on, and I've been learning more about the existence that we live in, or the oppression that we live in. And I've been learning and understanding more about the oppressions of multiple populations. And I've been figuring out a way to how to fix this, and I think we got to figure it out. You know, on September 19th, we got this joint called the Real Race Dialogue in response to that fake race dialogue they had here.
We're not gonna hate. We're just gonna do the real one.
I'm just talking about my oppression, man. That's it. You know, they always want to keep me quiet about my oppression.
I don't want to keep you quiet.
Yeah. So listen.
Let's just talk about your movement.
Right. So we got the Real Race Dialogue coming, and that's where we're gonna come together and deal with community self-determination.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So it was positively fake.
See, you know what? I just said.
Okay, you are the boss. Okay, I'm
saying the what and the what?
The boss, but all right. So what are some of the main goals of having this Real Race Dialogue on September 19th?
And if you want to know more, you can always give us a call at 508-796-5965. Go ahead.
Or you can hit either William McNeil at WMCNEILL@gmail.com to get to find more information if you feel like you should have been invited to this, or Keith Laporte, KeefeLaporte @gmail.com. Hit either one of them up if you feel like you need to be or you should have been part of this process. And what we're going to do on the 19th without giving away too much, because we need to be really strategic. Because I keep telling folks that we're at war. And people, I understand that people are scared of war, and it's more convenient to think that we have some sort of control over our life, but we do not. We have been duped. They're trying to kill us with the food. They're not fixing anything. They're just getting paid off the medicine. They're not educating our children. They educate that what they're doing is teaching our children to be workers for antiquated industries that don't even exist anymore. And so you got like tons of jobs in information and science and technology that they busting people over from India and Asia because they know about math and science. Our kids don't know nothing about it. They teaching our kids to be, I don't know, like FedEx or like you get a whole generation that graduated with degrees and no jobs. Like there's nothing there. You not even to mention what they're doing. Like if the education is the future, why are you charging young people to go to college? Like ridiculous rates. It's not even reflective of the cost that it takes to educate them. They are raping us across the board, right? Like they don't care about the people. It's about corporation run. We are all commodities. They're getting us at any way they can, and it would be irresponsible for us. I remember when I was young, so I was raised right outside of D.C. In Northern Virginia, and it was all black community. Everybody was black except for the police, right? Like I always go, right? We don't have any moral or legal obligation to these laws. There were no black or brown people when they made these laws up. These laws are designed to keep us down and to keep white folks up, to support white supremacy. We have no moral or legal obligation to these laws. And the sooner black people understand that, the better we are. That being said, me growing up in a black community, I was raised different, right? And I saw and understood what it meant to be black. And you just don't have that here. There's no consciousness here. There's no understanding of what it's supposed to be. All the men I see here, I mean, in my age group, I mean, you don't want to use absolutes, but a significant portion of the men, black and brown men, and specifically black and Puerto Ricans, black Americans and Puerto Ricans, if you're not a barber or you work for a few select work for a nonprofit, you selling drugs, right? There's no jobs here, right? They're telling you this lie that folks, I had to, like, times got hard and I had to take a second job working at honey farms. And one thing that I realized is that they're out there telling this lie that they're lazy, that our community is full of lazy people. There are some hard-working people. I work the overnight shift. People who getting up doing their best, and it's not enough. We fighting for minimum wage to be $10 an hour. The living wage, meaning what you need to make without added stress or an extra job, is $22 an hour in Worcester. And we're fighting for $10 an hour.
It's 15 they're fighting for. But
well, I mean, we just got 10 here in Worcester, right? We don't have 15. We got 10. We had to fight for 10, right? It wasn't given to us like we had to push for it. That even 15 ain't enough. So at the end of the day, I'm saying, what are we doing? We are irresponsible. That's why I started off. I said, I remember when I was younger, we used to see like the Keep the Eyes on the Prize, the Martin Luther King documentaries, and you see Mandingo, all the slave movies, and we all be there like, nah. If I was during that time, I wouldn't have stood for it. I wouldn't have stood for it. Lies. You are living in slavery time right now. Prison is privatized. It's mass incarceration of black and brown people. They are building prisons by the day. And who do you think is going to fill those prisons? It ain't going to be white people. It ain't going. I mean, for the most part, it might be poor white people. It's black and brown people filling these prisons, right? And not only if it was just kind of circumstantial, if they were putting the people there that belong to be there, right? Nearly 80% of the incarcerated felons, quote unquote felons, are there for non-violent drug offenses, right? So they portray close to 77% of the crimes as violent crimes, which means murder, rape, and robbery, which is an absolute lie. It's the opposite. Like, so they're locking people up for selling drugs or doing drugs, right? And selling drugs is a crime about socioeconomic status. That means that people don't have enough money. There's not enough access to resources. So you create this situation where folks don't have enough, and then when they do what they have to do, then you lock them up and they fill them up by the day. We are living in this time. When you privatize prisons, you incentivize locking people up. You turn locking people up into a business, and they're gonna get that money. It's billions of dollars. If we don't do anything, you are dirty. You got blood on your hands. The same thing we tell white people about being silent about doing that is the same thing we're silent about what is all happening to us. It's not just if you say this to black men, they want to kill you. If you talk to black men about misogyny and sexism, homophobia, heterosexism, if you talk to them about the planet, they want to kill you. But we have to understand sooner than later that we have to unite. We have to connect with the other people that's getting duped, because the people at the top is getting it and they laughing at us.
So is this what's going to be talked about on Saturday?
In a nutshell.
Okay.
It's going to be, I think it's going to be a lot more talked about too. It's not going to be just, and I want to encourage people to come because, I am part of the Men of Color think tank too, who are hosting this event, along with other people that we're blessed to have working alongside of us. But what you said earlier, when you first started talking, you said you're starting to see that there's other cultures who are also dealing with this type of slavery, such as your mother. Shout out to Lisa, I love you. You talked about earlier. Okay, so I have an iPhone. Mm-hmm. All right, and I was arguing with someone on Facebook about who's doing for who and who's doing what, and what are you doing in your, on Facebook, like how I usually argue. And she put, we all are guilty if every time we renew a contract and get a new cell phone, there's slaves somewhere,
children,
in child labor, working someplace.
Forced. They don't get paid.
Forced to manufacture this stuff for companies.
Facts.
And so when you said that immediately made me think back to that. So what brought you to this situation, and are you working with other races, or are you focusing primarily on black people?
Fam, like you first off, if you about black liberation like I am,
yep,
you got to deal with white folks, right?
Yep.
Right? Because white people only listen to white people, right? Yep. Like, because of white supremacy, they can't hear anything else. Like, so when you say Black Lives Matter, you only talking to black and brown people. Because the world that you live in, when you say Black Lives Matter, when white people hear it, whether consciously or subconsciously, they hear that's what you think, right? Like subhuman. Like, we are still 3/5 of a human being. Folks think that the 13th Amendment ratified. It did not. It only spoke about free people. The 3/5 of a human being thing came from when they were trying to account for the electoral votes, right? So you know how the system works, right? You, based on your population, you get more representation.
Yep.
And so the South was trying to count the slaves as hoes, and the North was like, no way, because they would have gave them too much power. So they got to be 3/5 of a human being, right? That was written into our law in that verbiage. We are a nation of laws, which means the words, right? The word, it was never said that black people are no longer 3/5 of a human being, which it needs to say to reverse a law. It never said that. It only in the 13th Amendment only spoke about free people. I say all that to say this: black people are the basis of the economic system, right? So poverty is the punishment for not conforming to capitalism, right? If you don't get in line, if you don't do what we tell you, if you don't go along with this plan, you won't have any opportunity. You won't make any money in this capitalist land. You have to work to live here, right? Like, we're all born here, like, for what God given right, but the system says no. You have to work to live here, right? You don't get no choice in that. You have to work, and if you don't go along with that, you're going to end up being poor. And you know what's the biggest deterrent from being poor? I really want to speak freely, but I'm gonna respect your show. The black people, right? The white folks call us other names, right? Well, we only want to call ourselves black. Everybody else calls us the other name, right? Okay. And so that's at the bottom, and that's the deterrent from being poor. That's what we live in, right? And if we don't have a more savvy strategy that gets white people to understand that by treating and living and benefiting from a society that dehumanizes black people, in turn, it dehumanizes you. This brother out in Cali, when I was learning how to organize out in Cali, this sharp brother from Baltimore had put me onto that. And he was like, racism impacts us all. It was like the third or fourth time I heard that, I was really annoyed. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, white people are benefiting real lovely from this, right? They have access to everything, safety. They don't worry about their kids being killed randomly from in drive-bys. Like, they have access to the best food, green space, cleaner air, everything, right? And he says, brother, when you have to make someone live on their knees for you to feel tall, that's neurosis. That's awful for your soul. That destroys you internally, right? And so there's no way. Human beings are social animals. We cannot treat you. I cannot dehumanize you without in turn dehumanizing myself.
Indeed.
Right. So that we don't speak about that openly. We don't acknowledge that openly. We just normalize it because it's the system that we live in. We live in white supremacy, right? That says this is how you're supposed to act. This is how you treat people. This is how you treat quote unquote ugly people. This is how you treat quote unquote fat people, disabled people, old people, black people. Like, this is how you inform it. It's all a really macro scale of Willie Lynch, what they did to the slaves. Separation. The more you can separate folks, the more you can control them. Right? They do your work for them. And so we have to understand that you can't just work. Look, I love the Panthers, man. I love the Panthers, but I was listening to one of the OGs you talking, and some of the stuff, like, I'm about black liberation all day, and I'm gonna call it that, and I'm not ashamed to do that. But for us to say, I just need to focus on organizing black people exclusively, that would be impossible right now, right? Because we have blacks with Latino people, we have we have babies with Latino people, white people, Asian people. And so,